What's up, everybody? So, I've got my chocolate currently drying on the porch. It's looking mint so far. Now, I'm going to do something a little different. I want to give you a review of this book that I just finished. Oh boy. Like, personally, I'm a big fan of the neo-western. Ever since I saw The Wild Bunch when I was younger, which was essentially Sam Peckinpah's attempt to stop glorifying the violence of, the frontier days. And, the movie itself is about, this kind of rugged, aging band of criminals who, they knew the ways of the West, but, this was in the early 1900s, so World War I was about to start, so you see them using, the 45 automatics instead of, like single action revolvers and stuff like that. It has some of the best action sequences I've ever seen, and I could be wrong about this, but I do believe that it was the first film to utilize slow motion in the infamous, amazing Battle of Bloody Porch scene. If you don't want to watch the whole movie, please do yourself a favor and at least watch the Battle of Bloody Porch, which, if you do want to watch the movie, that's the culmination of it, so it will spoil the entire movie for you, but it is a sight to behold. And unfortunately for Peckinpah, where he was going, stop glorifying violence, please, I want to show you what violence really looks like. People were like, yeah, this is fucking awesome, all this blood and shooting, and people falling in slow motion like bullet ballet, hell yeah. And then caused them to go into this sort of spiral into madness and drug abuse and alcoholism. I grew up as a big fan of my two, or I guess three main heroes growing up: James Bond, The Man with No Name, Sergio Leone films, Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry. But I have gained a sort of renewed perspective on that because of The Wild Bunch, and also because of novels by Cormac McCarthy, like Blood Meridian is one of my favorite books ever written, or that I've ever read. And I think it's one of the best westerns that's ever been written. And it's, historically accurate in that it's about this roving band of renegades who, this is something that actually happened, the Mexican government would pay for, these outlaws to kill Native Americans. And, they would have to provide a scalp as proof of their kill. And so, the obvious problem is, how do you distinguish between a native scalp and a Mexican scalp? And that's what kind of happens in the novel, is they start just killing Mexicans and scalping them, and, it's also, Blood Meridian's got one of the best villains I've ever encountered, who I would love to see brought to the big screen, but, in a way that is, I couldn't see it at all being made today without pissing off a lot of people. But this guy, the judge, he's like this 7-foot-tall, albino, hairless, fucking lunatic, pedophile, gunfighter, intellectual who can speak multiple different languages, play multiple different instruments, but he fights naked except for his cowboy boots and his holster, and he's kind of like a representative of the group's collective evil. And I love Blood Meridian, but I gotta say, Blood Meridian's pretty fucking tame in comparison to this. My god, I just finished this yesterday, and I had to like read it as I was walking down the street. Like, you know, that's how like hooked I was by the climax. And you know, if you want an action-packed ride, you know, this may not be for you because it is a slow burn for the first kind of half of the novel. But it's, you know, if you've seen Craig S. Zhaler's films, Dragged Across Concrete, A Brawl in Cell Block 99, Bone Tomahawk, he's written scripts for other films as well, but those are the ones he's written, directed, and scored. And I personally think they're some of the best films made in the last while. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be making any films anytime soon because Dragged Across Concrete got a lot of shit for transphobia and racism. But the thing is, like, Zhaler himself says that he doesn't at all care about politics or like trying to convey some social commentary. He just wants to make a story. And you know, Mel Gibson as one of the main characters in Dragged Across Concrete, you know, probably didn't help with the rap that film got. But like, the thing is, that movie, it's like, you gotta look at it like Deadwood. The shit the characters say, it's supposed to say more about them than, you know, the vile shit they're spewing. And like, ultimately, if anything, it's like like, for reasons I won't get into because of spoilers, like, I've done a whole video defending Zhaler on this while I was really high on ALLAD and Molly. You can find that somewhere on my channel. Yeah, you know, there's moments in the film that show that, you know, the racist, the transphobic shit. Like, you know, there's a line in the film that, like, it's just like, what the fuck? Like, where like, at the beginning, the two cops are getting suspended, and they're like, you gotta show more compassion and blah blah blah. And Vince Vaughn's character's like, oh yeah, I really care about race. Like, I order a dark roast every Martin Luther King Day, and I was like, what? Okay. I mean, that was just one that didn't really land. But I mean, and it's weird because he has a black like girlfriend in the movie who he proposes to. But you know, again, Zhaler doesn't care about the politics and the social commentary. He just cares about telling a good story, and he tells very good stories. And like Dragged Across Concrete, this does a tremendous job of building up what's going to happen. There's just so much mounting tension, and then when the action takes off, holy fuck does it ever. Like, this is why this is a great example. This is emblematic of why I think literature is one of the few things that has been unimpeded by political correctness. And don't get me wrong, like, for the most part, I agree with a lot of quote-unquote political correctness, but at the same time, I think some of it does go too far. Like, you know, I was all for, you know, the Me Too movement when it was, you know, taking people like Harvey Weinstein to task, but when it's canceling people for making jokes and shit like that, you know, it's silly, and it's a mob mentality type thing, and I really find it just counterproductive. But in any case, onto this book. So there are many elements of this book that, like, I saw parallels in his movies. From some characters, like the character of Richard, or Dickie, who's often referred to as the gambler. He's kind of a ladies' man. He's a handsome fellow, like, and I just could not picture anyone other than Matthew Fox's character in Bone Tomahawk. And for the rancher, I couldn't picture anyone other than Kurt Russell, and then Richard Jenkins for T.W. Goodstead, who's the sheriff. And so the basic premise of this is these outlaws, the Tall Boxer gang, who were formerly, they were in bed with these really nasty motherfuckers. Yeah, like seriously, like some of the most vile, deplorable, but cunning bad guys I've encountered in a long time, and it was so refreshing. I mean, I hated these fuckers with a passion by the time the book got to the conclusion. You know, I won't go into spoiler territory, but I will just tell you, just off the top of my head, some of the violence in it that happens. Like, holy shit. Like, okay, so the book starts with a scene where these two twins, who they work for the villain, Quinlan. Quinlan is, he's a great villain. He's this, like, little Irish dude, and he's got this sort of red beard that looks like he's got blood on his face. And, he gets essentially mutilated by, you know, Indians or whatever, because what they would do is, when they roamed with the Tall Boxer gang, who, you know, they get invited to this wedding, because they all went their separate ways after this disastrous raid, because these guys were just like, the Tall Boxer gang and then Quinlan, the villain's gang, they were separate, sort of roving outlaws for a while, but then they joined up, and Quinlan had this, he had this con of essentially, they would go into, like a camp of Indians, you know, and I'm just gonna say, just imagine finger quotes every time I say Indians, because, like, the way this is told is, like, from the perspective of someone back then. You hear a lot of, you know, Negro type words, stuff like that, but, you know, it's meant to be conveyed from the perspective of someone's mindset back then, which, you know, is relatively accurate, and it's not used maliciously, from what I can tell. Yeah, they would go in to these camps of braves, like really tough Indian fighters, and they would just start fucking hurling grenades at them, and they would find the chief, and, like, they make, like, the chief eat fucking dog shit to, like, show that he's, like, or no, horse shit to show that he's submissive, and, then what they do is they sick a bunch of these Indians onto a town, and then they ride in like they're saving the day and kill all the Indians, and then get paid, you know, handsomely as a reward. You know, you gotta admit, that's a pretty crafty fucking scam. I mean, it's evil as fuck. Very fucking evil, but it's, you know, again, it's supposed to make you hate these fucking villains. And the Tall Boxer gang, you know, are, like most characters in the Zhaler film, very morally ambiguous. You know, they clearly have some level of a conscience, unlike Quinlan and the twins, who are kind of his right-hand men. But, yeah, so what happens essentially is, after one of these Indian raids, the Indians just start slaughtering fucking the townsfolk. They're going fucking apeshit, like, portraits of my part. I'm not, like, I'm really trying to convey this without coming off as racist, but, like, it's just, again, this is a period piece. It is, like, not pulling any punches, and that's a good thing. I don't think something that's meant to make you immersed in that time period is supposed to omit things because they're not politically correct today. But, like, you know, the Tall Boxer gang, they see fucking, like, the Indians fucking, like, scalping little girls and shit, and, like, they're just, like, fucking terrified by what they're seeing and what they've done, so they start killing them, and they basically fuck over Quinlan in the process, and Quinlan and the twins, the Indians get some retribution against them. And this book starts off so strong. It's the scene where these two young, like, fine, dandy, kind of posh folk in a bar who just got married. The twins come in, and one of them doesn't talk, and the other one's doing all the talking, and kind of keeps hinting at this presence outside the bar, who's looming, who's revealed to be Quinlan. But essentially, the twin, like, just through sheer terror, forces the bride to put her pinky in the mouth of her husband, and he, like, fucking kicks the husband's jaw, and fucking their pinky goes off, and blood spurts everywhere. It's a very strong, brutal start to a fucking increasingly brutal novel. Like, there's a little Frenchman who works for Quinlan called Alphonse, and he makes art out of people in the most grotesque ways possible. Like for example, he like just like nailing like fucking big fucking coffin nails into the heads of these women while they're still alive. Yeah, it's fucking brutal, dude. And there's, like, you know, nothing spared. Like, animals get fucking eviscerated, and, like, you know, these villains are very smart. Like, the problem I have with a lot of fiction these days are villains are too stupid to exist. Like, it's just not believable. You can't become immersed in something where, like, they're bending just objective reality so much that it just it wouldn't make sense. But in any case, what happens to Quinlan and the twins after they get fucked over by the tall boxer gang is that, and the twins are telling the story to the couple as, you know, pinkies in the mouth. Essentially, the twins got tied to a rock and just left in the desert. And so one twin, by the 5th day of, like, no water and food, was like, fuck it, I'll do everything I can to outlive you, and he fucking eats his own tongue. Yeah. And trust me, that's only scratching the surface of how brutal this is. But Quinlan, it's not quite specifically said what happens to him. All we know is that he got, like, absolutely eviscerated. Like, they, like, carved up his face, they carved all the flesh off of his hands, so he's got this big copper, almost like steampunk sort of glove that goes up his arm. And he's got this kind of hunched walk. And I think, I could be wrong about this part, but I think he had a brace as well for his back. Yeah, him, Alphonse, and the twins, they're pissed, and fucking the tall boxer gang at this point, like, they were so disgusted by what they saw and what they did that they, you know, hung up their spurs, they buried their guns, and they went on with their lives. The two of the brothers who are in the tall boxer gang, they both go their separate ways. One gets married, has a family. This is the one I keep picturing is Kurt Russell. And Diggy, the one I keep picturing is Matthew Fox in Bone Tomahawk. Just becomes this sort of ladies' man, gambler, and the pugilist, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, the one who's getting married in the book, because it all centers around this wedding, and, you know, shit's gonna go down at this wedding. These guys have all gone their own separate ways, but all the members of the tall boxer gang, they get telegrams to say that this guy who roamed with them, there's this massive fucking dude, who he seems like a sweet guy, but, you know, just like he got in with the wrong crowd. He's made a whole new life for him, and he has, like, a bunch of koi dogs, which are like coyote dog hybrids, and he's like named them like Mary, Jesus, and Joseph. And like it's just like I love the little details that Zhaler uses. Like he is a master of storytelling, and like he's also like, I mean, some of like kind of like I admit that some of his like he doesn't have a strength for dialogue, I think, all the time, like, but he does have some stuff that is like just endlessly quotable. But some of his dialogue does feel very unnatural. But at the same time, he is very poetic in his descriptions of things, and he goes into vivid detail when it comes to the whole violent stuff going down. And you know, this is it's not an exceptionally long read. It was just over 250 pages, and you look at the pages, it's not like Infinite Jest where it's like, you know, fucking tiny little letters going all the way down. Like, this was a pretty easy read. But there's just, yeah, there's one find, but yeah, like, another thing is he is very good at subverting expectation, because he kind of like, he builds up all these characters who end up kind of taking a back seat. And you know, these unlikely, oh yeah, here it is. These unlikely heroes sort of emerge. Interestingly enough, like T.W. Goodstead, the old aging sheriff of this town where the wedding's supposed to be happening. And the thing is, with the wedding, they know that Quinlan's going to show up, and he's going to exact retribution on them. And so, you know, they try to plan an offensive without tipping off the sheriff, and, yeah, once shit goes down, it really goes down, and it's just like pulse-poundingly intense until, you know, the end. But yeah, listen to this. This is just like, this is beautiful. The moon was a clipped fingernail adrift in a field of cotton, illuminating the rancher and the Porsche that he knelt upon with blue light. Oswald slid the grooved claw of his hammer around a raised nailhead, adjusted his grip, and pressed his hand forward. With a creak, like a fat man sitting upon a wooden cot, the old nail rose from the plank. The rancher put it down beside, put it beside 11 others that he had pulled from the wood, and set the hammer down. He dug his fingertips around the 6-foot by 1-foot plank and pulled. The slack came loose, revealing a rectangle of cool, opaque midnight that was divided by opalescent cobwebs. Like, just, you know, it paints pictures. He's very good at painting pictures. And, you know, I have been trying my damnedest to find a readable copy, because, like, you know, like, admittedly, like, with books like Infinite Jest, or, like, you know, something like Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon, I prefer an audiobook, because, you know, there's just so much, and it takes so long to fucking get through all of it. Like, Infinite Jest is, like, that, and Gravity's Rainbow is about the same. It's about 1,500 pages, and each page is about, like 4 of, like, one of these pages. You know, it's not an easy read by any stretch, you know. Infinite Jest is, like, notorious for being, like, that book that all guys have on their shelves but have never read. I got through the entire audiobook while I was working up on a farm in Alberta, but it took, like, at least 240 hours, and I was glad I had the copy of the book, because I was able to go back to the footnotes and sort of pick up on stuff I had missed. Yeah, I mean, those are very different stories than these are, but like those stories, you know, Gravity's Rainbow, or anything by Thomas Pynchon, really, I admittedly haven't read very much outside of Gravity's Rainbow, because his work is unique, but it's kind of like kind of frustrating to get through. I'm not gonna lie, because he has a very quirky, like sort of idiosyncrasy to the way he writes. But he has a very, very strong talent for painting pictures with words. And I would say this book, while it's not on the level of Thomas Pynchon or David Foster Wallace, but it's also, the comparison between them is kind of apples and oranges. The only comparison that I would draw is, just content-wise, it's not the same thing at all. But the comparison I would draw is just the competency when it comes to illustrating these images in your mind. And the reason I try to stray from audiobooks is because I don't retain as much information as if I read it. That's just ADD. I'm a visual learner. Anyone who's seen any of my videos knows by now I have fucking terrible ADD. So I go on so many rants, but I really recommend this book. I know that Wraiths of a Broken Land, which he either wrote before or after this, which is also a Western, the rights were purchased by Ridley Scott, and he was supposed to make it into a film. If it's anything like this, I think it'd be a tough one to make, just like people have really tried to adapt Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, but have failed tremendously, and has gone into production hell because of what I surmise, I think, on, reasonable ground. Not gratuitous, the violence is, it has purpose. In Blood Meridian, it's to show you that the West wasn't, such a great place after all. And in this, it's for the purpose of ratcheting up the narrative, which really does, as I said, I was so pulled into this, and, again, just harkening back to what I said a minute ago about ADD, my brain's constantly fucking all over the place, scattered, but I could not stop reading once I got to the fucking wedding. Oh, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Cormac McCarthy he wrote No Country for Old Men. He wrote it as a novella, but it was sort of written like a script, and I believe the script for No Country for Old Men was by him as well. Which, for those of you who haven't seen that, rush out and watch it, because it's one of the most brilliant movies. And I believe, I could be wrong about this, but I believe it is the only Coen Brothers movie that they didn't write themselves. It's the only adaptation they've done. And it's a fucking fine adaptation. Like Anton Shearer, fucking great villain, man. Call it. And, like the judge in Blood Meridian, he's representative of something. In my opinion, in No Country for Old Men, he's representative of a new generation of crime, superseding an old generation of law enforcement. But great art like that is open to interpretation, so, your views may vary on that. But that's a good thing. I think good art should have you coming away with an opinion on something. And I know that because of the content of this book, which is so extreme, and, as I said, pulls no punches with the vulgarities, the racism, all that. If this was read by your average person, they would have a lot to say about it. I guarantee you that I would not recommend this to your average person because it is so violent. Personally, I'm not a fan of gore porn type films. I like if I'm on a psychedelic or something for fun, I'll watch like those Italian sort of schlock fucking gore fests. How do you call it? See, this is the thing. I could tell you the name of it, the genre, any other day. But like Zombie 2, City of the Living Dead, Suspiria, everything Dario Argento's done, Deep Red, Tenebrae. It's like a very kind of Holocaust. A lot of those are just like no substance, all splatter. But those are like, because there is like some artistic merit in the way they film things with like an incredible like psychedelic sort of atmosphere. It's fun to watch when you're high, but at the same time, I hate gore porn movies like Hostel, Eli Roth films. Man, fucking, I never liked them. I remember as a kid like being like, oh, this is hardcore, we're watching this stuff. I mean, I watched movies like that as a kid, yes, I know. I probably shouldn't have, but whatever. I mean, I wasn't any worse off for doing so. I eschew violence when I can. I only, fucking throw down someone if I have to in self-defense, which I fucking will, but, I don't go looking for it. But I like stories. I like rounded, like characters that, they start like a sort of seed, and they're cultivated throughout the book, and you're constantly learning new things about them. That's what I'm about. I like substance in my stories, and there's a lot of substance to this behind the violence. Again, I think the violence is only just a tool to make you hate the villains that much more and want to see them pay, and B, to, again, as I said, ratchet up the intensity, the suspense of the story, which it does brilliantly. But as I said, the first half of the book, almost the first 3/4 of the book, is pretty slow. It has some intermittent sort of flashbacks of the intense violence that led to all this happening. The scene I told you about with the Indians, and the way it opens with a married couple and the husband being forced to bite his wife's pinky off. That shit. But that's nothing compared to what happens later on. Like, I won't tell you chronologically what happens, because I do want people to read this book. I do. I think it's great. If you can stomach, and like, if you're a horror aficionado, I mean, I love good horror, and I love neo-westerns that utilize the fascinating elements about the frontier life. Like Deadwood. I love Deadwood. It's one of my favorite TV shows that HBO's put out. It's weird because Deadwood doesn't get any flack despite racism being rampant throughout it. But, it's the same thing as what I say. Like, it's the racism the characters spew. It shows more about like flaws in them than it does about the words they're saying, and the effects that those words have on who they're saying them to. This isn't full of that much overt racism. I would say probably the first season of Deadwood has a lot more racism than this. But you know, if people were offended by Dragged Across Concrete, this would fucking make their brains melt and pour out of their fucking ears and their nose. Like, yeah. But, right, I was gonna give you some chronological examples of the violence in this, or, sorry, non-chronological, sequences, because I don't want to, like, ruin the story for you. But, like, the guy, I'll just say that, the guy, he gets brutally shit-stomped, and someone puts fish hooks in his mouth. The little Frenchman, the guy who likes to make art out of animals and people, and, you know, kicks his jaw shut, and the fish hooks, you know, jut out of his cheeks and everything. Like, it's fucking, it's pretty brutal. As I said, you know, two women actually get nails fucking slammed into their heads, and it's actually really brilliant how he did that scene. And, like, you know, you could expect to see something like that in, like, Saw fucking 7 or 8 or whatever. You know, I never cared for those movies. The first one was alright for a student film, but whatever. I never cared for any of the movies after that, and, you know, I saw one, like, twice, and was like, yeah, I don't feel like I need to see this again. But, you know, the reason those nails are put there is for a purpose. I won't give it away because it's kind of crucial to the story, but, like, when they're driving the nails into, this crazy, deranged little Frenchman, like, one woman, she goes into a dream, and it's like her, and she's with her father, and her father's, like, gently nailing something into a wooden slat on a nice house that he's building. Like, you know, it's just, there's so much brilliant and sort of like almost narrative subversion in some parts that really give a lot of credence to the violence that transpires. I personally love this. I know that Zhaler has essentially been cancelled because of Dragged Across Concrete, and I think that's a fucking tragedy. I mean, if you think he's racist, like, really? Like, he fucking got the OJs to cover the music he wrote for the score for Rolling Cell Block 99 and Dragged Across Concrete. And for those of you who don't know, the OJs, they're like an all-black quartet, you know, do kind of soul music, like Soul Train era kind of guys. And Zhaler, like he said in an interview, he was like, I want people to know that these guys are still alive, and you should listen to them because they are talented, and they, like I, on my own accord, listened to particularly the soundtrack for Brawl in Cell Block 99. Like, it's got some brilliant songs that the OJs covered, and I couldn't imagine any other group doing it the way they did. Like, seriously, even though like John Carpenter's scores are much different tonally than what Zhaler does for his movies, I would say that my favorite movie scores are easily the ones for Brawl in Cell Block 99, Dragged Across Concrete, and then, you know, like Escape from New York. I personally love the Assault on Precinct 13 score. You know, John Carpenter. The Thing was actually Ennio Morricone. Interestingly enough, I was talking about Sergio Leone films, like, you know, the Man with No Name franchise. You know, A Few Dollars More, Good, Bad, the Ugly. Ennio Morricone. He did so much music, and, you know, he's a great example of Mondo Cane, which is an amazing style of an Italian fusion between rock and orchestral music that came out of the 60s. not a lot of people know about. Thank you, Mike Patton, for like really turning me on to that. I of course knew the soundtrack to especially Good, Bad, and the Ugly. It's iconic. It is beyond iconic. But I did not know about Mondo Cane. And Mondo Cane, by the way, is also the type of music that's used in the Italian sort of exploitation flicks I was talking about. Like, I saw a Goblin a little while ago who did the score for Suspiria and the rest of Argento's films, and also Dawn of the Dead as well, the Romero one. The really good one. The other one was alright. I liked the other one, the remake with the running zombies. It was alright, but like the original, that's where it's fucking at. And the score is amazing. It's great. Great seeing them play it live, even though there's like one original member in the band. But in any case, I'd say Goblin scores are some of my favorite, but in terms of auteurs who make their own music for their films, John Carpenter, Craig Zhaler, my favorite by far. Zhaler's stuff that he got the OJs to cover is like by far the most listenable. Like it's the most like funky, like you could play it when friends are around, if you were to play like Escape from New York theme or whatever, people would kind of be like, fuck, why are we listening to this theme? That's fucking amazing. And anyone who says otherwise can fuck off. I love that minimalistic style that John Carpenter uses. Like the Halloween score is iconic as fuck. I just don't listen to it very often because it's like so overplayed. Every time Halloween rolls around, people have it on their soundtrack. But it's up there with Jaws, and that it's like 2 or 3 notes, and it's something that sticks with you because it's got this creepy, impending doom sort of feel to it. But in any case, probably today I'm gonna try to find a copy of either Race of the Broken Land or because this was fucking amazing. Admittedly, it took me a little while to get into it because, as I said, it does start pretty slow. Or sorry, no, it starts very strong, but after that intro, it is taking its time to put all these pieces in place, and it just weaves everything together so brilliantly until this fucking volcanic eruption of a climax. So much of your expectations subverted, just like with his movies. A character who is being sort of billed as the protagonist or whatever. Here one moment, gone the next. When action happens, it happens fast, and it's over fast. Like would in real life, And, he does a very good job of, depicting, shootouts, sort of, brawls, violent encounters, because he doesn't do it in a way where he's like, oh, look at this, isn't this fucking cool? He does that with the practical effects and stuff in his movies, and I do think he does that creatively with, his illustrations of violence in this, but he does it in a way where it's like it feels realistic. And so, to harken back to what I was saying about Peckinpah, Peckinpah made all these extremely violent movies. They were so controversial when they came out, like Straw Dogs, or Iron Cross, which is, to me, it's fascinating that he even made that movie because it's showing a depiction of German soldiers who are basically, at the last-ditch stage of World War II, where, the Nazis no longer had the stuff they needed to make equipment, they no longer had men, they were fucking crippled by, Hitler's, buffoonish attempt to try to take Stalingrad, and also, the loss of their occupation of Normandy, which, General Patton, hilariously, he got the upper hand by sending out a bunch of inflatable tanks as a diversion, and so, Rommel, focused a bunch of their artillery and munitions and men on those just decoys, and then they hit fucking Normandy hard with everything they had, and Hitler made this stupid. Hitler was drugged out of his mind though. His doctor was fucking shooting him up with speedballs, fucking OxyContin, cocaine, fucking he was on over 90 drugs a day. But just real quick, while we're talking World War II history, because this is something I'm fascinated with. I think World War I and World War II were both things that could have very easily been avoided. I think World War I especially was started for a very stupid reason that, it's almost absurd, to the point of being hilarious. Assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who, they tried to kill him fucking multiple times, but they kept fucking up these guys, and then it just happened to be one of the guys who was walking home that was part of this ragtag group with the black hand, just happened to spot him taking the side street, bang, 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 and then boom, World War I, fucking one of the bleakest events in human history. And then that, of course, cascaded into World War II because it caused the Great Depression in Germany, and then Hitler wrote Mein Kampf and blamed the Jews for the Depression, recession, decadence, and all this fucking shit. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. I just love talking fucking World War fucking just history in general. Even Genghis Khan, I find fascinating. One more thing about that though. World War II, big mistake Hitler made was getting Rommel to fucking kill himself. Because it was considered to be a shame that he lost Normandy. And so they took their best tank commander, Rommel, was probably, he's probably smarter than Patton. Patton, General Patton, for those of you who don't know, he was quite a character, but he was also fucking arrogant. He was really fucking arrogant. And Rommel was very smart, and he was very reserved, and very much a strategist. And while Patton did admittedly, beat him in North Africa, that was just everyone was completely out of their depths in North Africa. No one had any idea what they were doing. My grandfather, who was in the Air Force, he got a jungle carbine that he bought when they were selling off munitions after World War II. And these things were really just shit, very small guns with very big rounds. I never got a chance to fire it because we never managed to find the bolt, and I don't know, something happened to it. It got lost along the way, unfortunately, because I would have liked to have restored that, but whatever. They are just not ideal for fighting, and I don't think anyone really knew what they were getting into when they occupied North Africa. But Rommel, after Normandy, just to go back to that, after the Allies invaded Normandy, fucking, what was it, Operation Overlord or whatever, I think that was at least the part where they knocked out the Khans. The movie Operation Overlord is named after that. That's an okay movie. Kind of forgettable, but it's okay as far as schlocky exploitative horror films go. And J.J. Abrams produced stuff, because he produced more dog shit than good movies, I think, personally speaking. But I liked Operation Overlord. Yeah, Nazi zombies. Who doesn't fucking love movies where Nazi zombies go splat? Right? Am I alone here? But yeah, Hitler was like, you know, he was fucking, like, completely fucking deranged by this point. You know, he was like to Rommel, like, you have shamed your country. Either, you know, we can execute you, or you can die valiantly, kind of like, you know, their own version of Senpuku. But with a Luger, and made him sign a fucking, like, pre-written thing saying how much he fucked up and how he was, you know, guilty of, you know, just not being a great strategist or whatever, even though he was like one of the best strategists in the war. And yeah, so Hitler got him to shoot himself, and then he took over command of the tanks, and yeah, the best tanks, I think still, like the Panzers, I think could probably kick the shit out of just about any modern tank. They were a force to be fucking reckoned with, but they got fucked by Hitler fucking, like, you know, essentially purging his ranks. You know, you see in that downfall clip where, you know, Hitler's fucking screaming at his generals, and like, I think it's like, oh God, I haven't seen Downfall in so long, but I've seen all the videos where they've replaced the subtitles with him like bitching about how people don't appreciate like Danny Carey from Tool's drumming or whatever. You know, it's being memed to fucking high hell. I have in low hell, whatever the fuck, you know. But yeah, like I think it was after he found out about like the crushing defeat that was, you know, Stalingrad for the Nazis. It's either that, or it was when he found out that they had nothing left but Berlin, and, you know, child soldiers to carry out their fucking valiant fucking war. Yeah. You know, this is why, you know, fuck Nazis, but, you know, in that fucking rant by that amazing German actor, he says, you know, I should just purge my ranks like Stalin did, which Stalin did do. Like, he passed an order to just, but this was like it was a play on his part to make sure no one fucking had any chance of essentially taking power away from him. You know, he wanted everyone to acquiesce to him, and, you know, he passed these orders to just fucking, you know, kill whoever, you know, anyone who was considered an intellectual. You know, Stalin was a pretty bad fucking guy. You know, he killed, I think, more Jews than Hitler. I'm not saying that makes Hitler better. They're both bad fucking guys, and we should all learn from everything they did to lead to them getting power, maintaining it, and, you know, so on and so forth. For the Nazis, it was predominantly propaganda. Like Goebbels was just like his films that he made back then are still considered like fucking masterpieces, even though they are just propaganda. And you know, Albert fucking Speer was like, you know, he had this whole like plan to make Germany into like a new Rome, and like apparently they did build these like amazing like Roman style buildings, but they all got fucking shelled to shit after the Nazis lost everything and were basically fucking enclosed in Berlin as you know, people like to say that like, oh, history taught us the Allies won the war, which is like, or the Allies were the ones who killed Hitler. I don't know like where people are hearing that. I never learned that growing up. It was always like, yeah, the Soviets were the ones who invaded Berlin and fucking, came across Hitler and all his generals who had killed themselves. The ones who didn't, were then seized by the Allies, and, Nuremberg, and meanwhile Operation Paperclip's like, okay, smart Nazi fucking Japanese scientists, back to it, real quick, while no one sees. Everyone, public, look at the guys being hanged. Look at the guys being hanged over here. Look at these guys, they're bad, right? They're bad. Okay, Ron, get the fuck over here. We want your rocket technology. Anyways, I've gotten totally fucking. I'm just fucking I'm just fucking nerd fucking gasming right now about just World War II, World War I history. I just find it fascinating. Like the way that Hitler fucking brainwashed people. He was hated. He was fucking hated. Mein Kampf was actually burned by the Germans. Mein Kampf is a fucking ugly, hideous piece of work. It really is. But then, through his effective use of propaganda, he managed to essentially turn people into these dogmatic supporters. And if they weren't dogmatic supporters, by the time he got in power, they faced threats of great violence. And you see this in, what's his name? The dude from Flight of the Conchords, and What We Do in the Shadows, Taika Waititi, Jojo Rabbit. He did Jojo Rabbit. He played Hitler in that, or imaginary Hitler. It shows that people were cowed into complacency, because it's like they would then fucking hang you if you didn't support the Nazi Party. And it's all fascination. And the reason I'm really going into it is because I think if you don't know about this stuff, you should, because call me fucking I don't know, hyperbolic or catastrophize or I don't know, just making radical, unfounded statements, but I do believe that modern day conservatism, Republicans are really not that far from Nazis, and I'm not saying this generally speaking, because you can only really judge an individual on an individual basis. For example, I've had nothing but fucking awful encounters with cops. They've all been traumatizingly fucked up. But at the same time, I still wouldn't say all cops are bastards, because I gotta say, I gotta know the guys before I judge them. If I see someone like Derek Chauvin, fucking knee to the neck, George Floyd like that, fuck that guy, fuck that cop. But, I'm not gonna generalize, and I would say that about anything else. Except for Nazis. Nazis can fuck off because, they just, but any form of nationalism that ultimately is, this sort of cloak and dagger, dancing around this notion that they essentially want ethno-states and what would probably result in genocide as a result of ensuring that one race has one space. Fuck those people. Fuck them. I have no fucking patience for those. Literally any other group. I think, innocent until proven otherwise. If they espouse bad beliefs, I'll probably be like, okay, yeah, so far I don't like you, but if I hear some racist shit or whatever, then I'm like, yeah, fuck off. But what I don't find in Zhaler's work? Racist shit. And, I have seen my fair share of it in person. Like, in a weird way, I've even experienced it, because I was like, bullied to high fucking heaven, low fucking hell. And I'm just gonna, that's not a phrase, but I'm just gonna keep using when I went to Catholic school, because I was Irish. It was weird, but, and also, like, you know, growing up, like oddly enough, like white kids were the minority in most of my schools. Like, there were all the other white kids were like rich French immersion kids, and so they didn't want anything to do with us. And by us, it was usually me and the native kids, and like I usually made friends in all circles, but, like, you know, it was like, you know, tribal mentalities for most of the ethnic groups where I grew up, and just by default, and because I was friends with these native kids, because they lived fairly close to me my entire life, and they always had my back. You know, they're great fucking people, and most of them have gone on to do very, very well in life. You know, I'd love to see them again someday. Like we were constantly fucking like gang stomped, like literally, like people would follow us home, like the Vietnamese gangs were probably the biggest. I mean, there weren't gangs, they were kind of wannabe gangs, but they were fucking cowards. They were like 7 or 9 of them would, like, you know, creep around and follow you home, and then, like, just kick the ever living shit out of you in an alley. And they did this shit all the time. So, you know, I've got a little bit of an idea of what that means, but at the same time, I came from a decent home, supportive parents, and I'm white, so, you know, I've got, you know, some degree of privilege, if you will, in this society, but at the same time, I also have mental illness too, major depressive disorder, and that's like the one thing, like if you're crazy, is that, like, people can shit all over you as much as they want, and it doesn't matter. No one will fucking bat an eye because they don't care. No one wants anything to do with crazy people, and I get it. I've had scary experiences with people in psychosis, be it from mental illness or, like, meth. Oftentimes meth, combination of both. Scary. And when you're a smoker and you're outside all the time, Doug Stanhope makes a good point saying this. You are the ones who, you know, ends up, like, having to default as their therapist because they're not getting the counseling, the treatment they need. And, you know, it's been a well-recorded fact that people with mental illness like to smoke cigarettes, and it does have a pacifying effect on them. It does for me, even though I don't have a psychotic disorder. I've heard some people with major depressive do have psychotic episodes, but I'm not so sure about that. I've only had psychosis once, and it was stimulant-induced from shooting cocaine for days, but that would happen to just about anyone. But it was still enough to be like, you already have these diagnoses, so we're gonna fucking lock you up for years with really scary criminals when you're a kid. Like, you know, so I've experienced systematic depression, but would I say I've experienced it worse than anyone else? Not by a fucking long shot. No fucking way. No fucking way. But the point I'm getting at is I know racism when I hear it. And I know racism when it's, you know, quote-unquote dog whistled, even though I don't really like using that term because it's something that 4chan kind of spun into their own little joke. But there are people who signal racism through, like, euphemism, you know, like, oh yeah, we want a white ethno-state, but when they're pressed on, like, how they would go about doing that, they don't go, oh, we'll just kill everyone. They should, oh, well, people can choose to leave or whatever. It's like, yeah, fucking right. Any, you know, quote-unquote student of history knows that there are no cases of one group kicking out another group and it being peaceful and agreeable. It's typically something that results in genocide. So, I personally think, this World War II stuff, World War I, that's going back, like Mao Zedong, Stalingrad, sorry, that's not going back, but even, sorry, I just had to mention those because those are important examples of totalitarianism, Khmer Rouge, Pol Pot, but even going back farther and farther and farther to, like the kings, the queens, and England, Genghis Khan, as I said, he's an interesting example, but the amount of people he killed, the world I think would have like 400 million more people or something by today's standards if he didn't kill all the people they did. Something I learned from watching the show Utopia. Not the one on Amazon. Don't watch that one. Don't watch that one with John Cusack, the American one. Fuck that shitty adaptation. Fuck it. To high fucking heaven. Low fucking hell. Yeah, I'm riding that fucking pony till it's fucking broke. Yeah, anyways, I'm just history repeats itself. This is a very commonly known thing. We should be aware of impending civil war. And what I mean by that is, and I think I've spoken on this topic before, civil war doesn't mean race versus race. It doesn't have to. It just means, when you think Civil War, you think apartheid, you think the Civil War of the states, where, a lot of people think it started with slavery. It didn't start with slavery, but it was largely predicated on the notion of freeing slaves, even though it didn't completely result in that actually happening. But it did liberate a lot of slaves, which is, good. A lot of people died in the process brutally, unfortunately, but this is why we need to learn from these things so we don't do them again. I encounter a lot of people my age who think that just because they know something happened, that they will be acutely aware enough to prevent it from happening again if those kind of earmarkings of atrocity, totalitarianism start to rear their head again. But I think that's an incredibly fucking arrogant stance to take, and I think it's an incredibly dangerous one to take. I would say that the only thing I can do is keep learning because I don't know enough about these things, and I don't know enough to say that I'm prophesizing a fucking civil war in the West. But here's the thing. People are more politically divided than ever. It is fucking crazy. It is like a 50-50 fucking ratio almost. Last time I checked anyways, it was 48% to 52% in the states of Democrats versus Republicans. And they're never gonna fucking agree on anything. You're never gonna fucking convince this Fox News shit that just happened, the leaks where, people like Tucker Carlson are have been exposed as being complete liars and hypocrites, saying they think Trump's a fucking demon, and they fired a reporter for not continuing the lie, or why am I doing finger quotes? It is a lie, that the election was stolen, something that resulted in so many taxpayer dollars being spent recounting the ballots just for them to find out Biden got more votes than they initially thought. George Soros runs a Dominion fucking voting campaign. It's like cognitive fucking dissonance at its finest for the viewers. But like this Fox News leak, it shows that they are only pushing these narratives because it's what keeps people tuning in. But guess what? Has Fox News suffered in ratings or anything? Not that I can tell. Why? Because here's the thing, and this applies to anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, stuff like that. It applies to people who deny the reality of drug addiction and the insane fucking toll fentanyl's taking on the lives of so many people. People, A, don't want to admit they're wrong unless their little insulated fucking worldview is breached in a like traumatically impactful way, like someone they know and love dearly dies of like fentanyl or COVID or whatever. But even still, that's not enough to change some people's minds because they dug their heels in for so long that it's like any concession of being wrong. And please know that despite what the internet says about, admitting you're a hypocrite or you were a hypocrite, for the purpose of learning that you were wrong and making better, more informed decisions is like the worst crime you can commit. That's complete bullshit, and that is the wrong way of going about it. And this is something that is promoted by the same people I see as saying, oh, yeah, I don't have to worry about history repeating itself because I know history. It's like, I have an idea of history, but I don't know it fucking like a glove. There's not a glove that fits firmly onto my hand. I'm no fucking expert. I just know that I need to keep fucking researching, and I need to keep trying to understand parallels. But I also shouldn't jump to conclusions. So, I am going to roll back my comment a little bit on potential civil war because I don't know for sure. I don't know. But I think there could be a political civil war. I think. I'm not saying I know. I'm saying I think. I am making an inference. And whether that's baseless or not, I'm not qualified to say. So, long story short, just pay attention and, be willing to learn. And please be willing to admit that you're fucking wrong or you've been a hypocrite if it's for the purpose of learning something new. Because that is how I have come to some of the most humbling revelations in my life. And I am by no means a smart person. If that's not already obvious. But anyways, this was supposed to be a book review. I just completely went on a fucking tangent. But the reason I think I went on that tangent, is just to show that, a lot of people who harp about racism, stuff like that, are typically white people who have never experienced any of it. Or, even like Asian people, if they live in the suburbs and had a good family, they've had all the money they need, they can easily say, oh, we care about this, that, and the other that's happening to these people when they really know nothing about it because they want to look good and, maybe they are plagued by guilt for, the inaction they've taken throughout their lives. As I said, I've been embroiled in, racism that I've, admittedly, I've seen happen to marginalized groups more than to me directly, more directed at the people I was hanging out with than to me. But still have seen what it is like in its raw form, and, it is a lot different than what, you hear on a lot of social media these days. Like most people today are just cowed into oh, well, I gotta not say this or that or fucking express myself at all because I may come across as racist. It's no, It's like the intention behind what you're saying is what's like ultimately going to be racist or not, and like how your words or actions affect the other person, who's on the receiving end of that. If it's, if you're being malicious, if you're, saying the N-word because you're doing, a play of a William Faulkner novel or whatever, context fucking matters. And in this, the context is Zhaler is trying to immerse you in the frontier west and show you how people thought back then. If anything, that's the only message he's trying to get across. But again, he said it himself. He does not care about commentary. He cares about a good story with good characters. That, I recommend this book. And I'm going to find a copy of either Race of Broken Land, or I would really like to read his other book that is being, the rights are being purchased by Leonardo DiCaprio, but I doubt it's ever going to be made into a movie because, well, Zhaler's written over 99 scripts. Most of them have been purchased. None of them have really been made, unfortunately, because I would love to see more from him. But Mean Business on North Granson Street, that's the next one I want to read. Because it sounds like it's got a lot of parallels to Draped Across Concrete, like cops working the Rust Belt in the States, which those of you unfamiliar with that, that's essentially towns that were resource-based that dried up and became sort of dilapidated. People usually became addicted to Oxycontin, whatever, because they were doing hard labor before that. But I don't know very much about this novel. I just know it involves two cops, and they're sent in from a big city. At least one of them is, anyways. And they're murdering a spree of cop killings. That's all I really know. I don't want to know too much going into these stories, because especially after reading this and knowing so little about it, I was fucking like, it pulverized me by the end of it. In the best way possible. Like, I was just like, mind fucking blown. That was amazing. These villains were fucking great. If you're into narratives that go in many different directions, and just will swerve from one anticipated build-up into a complete subversion of everything you saw as like being stacked up to happen. Like, seriously, he does that very well. Couldn't recommend it enough. Congregation of Jackals. For a while, I kept saying, for some reason, Conflagration of Jackals. But I don't know why, because it just doesn't make sense. But it's another book I got to read. Again, I read it a long time ago. The Confederacy of Dunces. Great fucking book. It's a favorite of comedians for a reason. But it's a very different kind of book than this. It's like a comically chaotic kind of like character-driven, wacky story with a very tragic backstory to the novel itself, because the author killed himself after, he was so dissuaded from publishers rejecting his novel and stuff like this, and I think he had some mental illness going on, but so he never got to see his novel get published. His mother actually published the novel for him posthumously. I'm pronouncing that right. But again, those are apples, oranges, very different stories, very good books, both of them. Anyways, I've gone on for long enough. Be good. Be good out there, you hear? No, you folks are. You're fine fucking folks. You're real fucking gems. I appreciate you. Because you know what? My life, unfortunately, has been kind of it's grinded to a halt, as benzo withdrawal has made me a bit of agoraphobic hermit. Like, I could have gone to a huge rave last night, where so many great people I knew would have been, and my friend organized, and like I felt so bad having to say no. I just like feel so shitty. I can't party. Like, yeah. So I just what I'm getting at is I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate the fact that I can relate with a lot of you on stuff that like no one I know in person deals with. So, you know, it's very hard to convey these things to people unless they've experienced it themselves, you know? Um, so, what I'm saying is, I appreciate you. Thank you. Great book. Check it out. Check it out. Peace. I gotta check out my chocolate. It's fucking, should be dry by now.